Good evening. Good evening. Welcome to the Word Empowerment Church Tune Up Tuesday. I am Pastor Micah Chapman, and I'm so excited to be with you all this evening. I told you all I would be back, part two of our We Church Financial Literacy webinar, if you will. Let's start with a word of prayer. Let's open up with a word of prayer this evening. Father God, we thank you for allowing us to come together in this time, in this season, in this summer. I know it's hot outside, Lord. We thank you for the heat. We thank you for the sun. We thank you for the nature. But most of all, Lord, we come before you with grateful hearts. We're thankful for the opportunity to gather as community to learn and grow. We acknowledge that all wisdom comes from you, Father God, and that you are the ultimate provider for everything in our lives and all of our needs and wants. So we say thank you, Lord, for your provision. And in Jesus' name we pray. Amen and amen. As promised, I'm back. As you all are coming on, I'm back with the We Financial Literacy webinar. I promised that I would bring a friend along, a colleague along, a person I look at as a financial advisor as well. Before that, let me recap and go over what we went a little bit last time. We went through for a biblical perspective. We talked about being a financial steward and financial stewardship. We went over how to manage debt. We went over how to avoid debt. We went over how to invest and what the future looked like, all from a biblical perspective. But this week, I want to turn our hats and turn our heads over. Not that we're going to drop the Bible or anything like that, but I want to add some practicality to everything that I mentioned throughout the scripture. So I want to bring my friend, my colleague, my financial advisor, Mr. Roland McIntyre from MountainTop Wealth. Appreciate you, man, for joining us this evening, man. This guy, we do a lot of work in the community together. Not only just financial work, but just community work all together. We're both advocates for Chattanooga, both Brainerd High graduates as well. So shout out to the BHS Panthers. And Roland, man, go ahead and introduce yourself. Let the folks know all about MountainTop Wealth and what you do.
Oh, certainly. Thank you for the introduction. I am from Chattanooga, Tennessee, born and raised here. As Mikey mentioned, I am an alum of Brainerd High School. I went to Tennessee State and have my bachelor's in business administration with a concentration in accounting. So it's essentially an accounting degree. My master's is a MBA in finance. I am a certified financial planner. That's the big, I have other designations, but that's the main designation that I'm very proud of. There's not many, not all financial advisors, financial professionals are certified financial planners. So you're talking about out of probably only 25%. So 1 out of 4 financial advisors are actually certified financial planners. That means we're fiduciaries, and it goes back to what you were talking about just earlier as far as that stewardship. It's that someone that's going to be a fiduciary at all times and looks out for the client's best interests. So that's where I do that at that type of financial education, financial literacy, investment management at my firm MountainTop Wealth, where we work with people one-to-one to help them reach retirement, to help them reach whatever financial goal it may be. Maybe it's to help restructure that debt situation that they're going through, help them make their way through those student loans, whatever the case is going on in your life situation, whether you're just wanting to start to invest and be more aware of how your money ties into so much of your life. I'm someone that can help you through some of those things, and am glad to be here today.
Thank you for the introduction, man. MountainTop Wealth, can you tell the audience who watching us this evening, who watched the rebroadcast, how you came up with the name MountainTop Wealth?
Thank you. Yes, certainly. So MountainTop Wealth is being in Chattanooga. You know, we're in that Tennessee Valley area, and we have that mountain there. And a lot of people think MountainTop Wealth comes, in the city, think it's related to that. Well, sort of, but it's deeper to that. For me, it really is. When I think of MountainTop, I'm thinking of Martin Luther King's last speech that he had in Memphis. before he was assassinated. Is helping people reach the mountaintop and helping people get to the goals that they want to achieve. Or maybe people have reached those goals. Maybe they have reached retirement. Maybe they have reached a certain status. They've gotten that job. But then what do they do next? And how and where do they go from there? Mm-hmm. And that's it's really that advocacy piece. It's really that giving back piece of helping people get to where they're going and being a guide and a steward for others.
Yeah. So real quick before you jump into your presentation, I want you to also talk more about what it is that you do day to day outside of, MountainTop Wealth. Everything that you do encompassing the finances, the other avenues and auxiliaries you may work, contractual or part-time. Just really talk about everything you do, even that MountainTop Wealth, as far as the different clients you do take on and things of that nature, just so people can really have a broad understanding of who Roland McIntyre is in the financial world.
Wow, certainly that is one. It's I want to help people that come from my community, of course, but I help all types of people from all different backgrounds, men, women. Doesn't matter your political party. It doesn't matter. Even if I can work with you, if you're willing to listen and learn, I'm there for you. And I find other avenues to help people, even if they can't afford my services by working with the Urban League. So I am a person that works with the Urban League with their financial empowerment director, as their VITA taxes. So people with low to moderate income, they can come to the Urban League the Urban League of Greater Chattanooga and actually get their taxes done during tax season, not right now, during tax season from usually the end of January to April 15th. But we're doing those type of things to make sure people that normally don't get those opportunities to learn financial literacy, that don't get those opportunities to get their taxes looked at by professionals, they actually get the chance to do that. And they get to talk to people who are knowledgeable and helpful that can help them reach their goals. I also work with people that maybe are just coming into a situation where you don't know, you just got a job. You haven't been making, I would say, big boy or big girl money yet. But now now you're in that role where now you have responsibilities and the income to actually match it. So now you need to know about insurance. You need to know about taxes. You need to know about, hey, should I save money in that 401k plan? Should I roll over that IRA? Those type of things I'm there to help people with as well. So it may be simply be doing financial seminars in the community. It may be doing one-on-one meetings with individuals. It may be a husband and wife and this type of, hey, you're about to get married, newlyweds. It's the gamut. So it really is a large variety of different types of people we work with in order to help people feel like it is possible. And that is going to be my message tonight. This is possible. It is different for everyone. Everyone's situation is unique, but really getting a better handle on your finances is possible. It helps with stress. It helps you really see your future better, think more clearly, and really can change the way you live.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. That's my sole purpose of facilitating this webinar, because I know what the personal experiences, what it's done for my life and my household, just being able to have a financial plan and knowing that if my finances are intact, then my well-being is intact as well. I can, like you said, think clear. I can make better judgment. Things just fall in line easier and more efficient than it did before I had my finances together. But yeah, man, I'm gonna turn it over to you and let you present and do your thing, and I'll come back and close us out in prayer when you're finished. And yeah, it's on you. The house is in your hands.
All right. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to share my screen here for a moment, and feel free, Pastor Chapman, to interrupt anytime with questions, sir. Anything. We can always come back here so that we can make sure we're answering questions, comments, and getting right to the point. Because what I want to make sure we're doing is answering the actual questions, the things that are concerning people, or the things that have had people wondering. I always want to give you an opportunity to have that question answered. If we can have that question answered live. If you can't get that question answered live, my contact information will be available at the end, but it is Roland, Roland, my first name, at MountainTopWealth.com is my email address. And we'll provide that information also at the end. But let's go ahead and get this thing moving along. I'm going to share my screen and we'll get going. So we're going to focus on protecting our families with our finances. And this is just a legal disclosure that financial advisors and investment advisors have to show that, hey, this is for educational purposes only. We don't know the full particulars of your situation. So please don't take this as personal financial advice. This is general and educational in nature. That's all this is saying. So just want to make sure that that is clearly understood, but we're still able to answer those questions. But if it gets too personal, there is some limits to what we can go to in tonight, but we may have to schedule a one-on-one meeting if someone has that type of question. About me, I'm not going to go over all of that, but because we already kind of touched on it. So that's some great information as far as about me, or I would say great, but I mean, as far as a quick rundown is for you to understand there. And we're going to get right into it. I'm going to give you some bullet points right off the top of ways you can really help your financial future. We may not be able to touch on all of these tonight, but you know what? These are some things I want you to have in the back of your head so that you can start thinking about, how should I approach these? What should I do? There's so many options on the internet. There's so many different options on TikTok and things that are tempting. And that's literally the word I want you to think. Some of this stuff is tempting and it can really confuse you and lead you astray. But some of the things we're going to talk about really is doing some things that are foundational. It's some of the things that I'm letting you know right now. It's some things that people do not do. And these are foundational things that can help just about anyone, and no matter the situation. So this is foundational stuff we're going to talk about. So just get it. Let's get some of this stuff out of the way. Paying yourself first. What do people mean by when they say pay yourself first? What they're simply saying is, when I get paid, before I pay those bills, I'm focused on prioritizing my saving and my giving. So whether you tithe, whether you put money in a savings account, you prioritize that sort of thing before you start focusing on the bills. Now, does that mean you give a larger portion to your giving and your savings than your bills? No, that doesn't mean that. It's just making sure you make that a priority by doing it first. Because guess what? If you wait till the end after you've tried to pay the bills and have the fun and do the other things, you end up not having enough to ever do so. So you always say, hey, I had the intention of doing it, but I never have enough money to do so. So if you put it on the front end, it makes things a little easier to do. So another thing is having a long-term mindset of, hey, now we don't have enough time to think about this, but hey, you don't. The easiest way for me to tell you to deal with this one is, if it sounds too good to be true, if it's fast money, you need to think twice. You really need to think about, hey, there must be some catches here. Maybe it's not shady, but I would be cautious, is what I'll say there. Have a long-term mindset. People don't build extraordinary wealth overnight. There's some things going on in the background, and you want to know that story and the how and the why, and you want to be able to realize that, hey, this may take some time, this may take some work, but it's going to be beneficial for me to do so. Okay. Obviously, I'm a financial advisor and financial professional. Instead of going off of our celebrity influencers and people who do not have these designations, go to a financial advisor, whether it's myself or someone else, someone that is credentialed, someone that does have a actual designation that you've heard of, that you can actually research. and look up yourself without them giving you the information and actually know that this person is credible. Having a financial plan. Pastor Chapman talked about this at the beginning. So having some structure, having an emergency plan, and having to know if something bad happens, where do I go? Do I have an emergency fund? Okay, when it's time for me to touch my retirement account, or is it when it's time for me to retire? Am I taking money from my retirement account, or am I taking that money from some other place? Having these different things set up, depending on where you are in life, depending on your age, can make a big difference and save you a lot of money. This goes right into debt as well. Having that financial plan, if when you are actually paying your bills on time, when you actually have a good credit score, you're going to pay less interest. You're going to have more money in your pocket because you've been responsible in paying your debts back, and that credit score is higher. So if you do need to actually take out a loan, if you do utilize a credit card, if you do actually have a mortgage or need to refinance that mortgage, your interest rates, meaning the money that you pay on top of that principal, is going to be less than someone who has a bad credit score. Automatic investing is just what that is, setting it up automatically where you don't have to worry about it. So where there is $50 a month going into investments, $50 going into an emergency fund, whatever the amount is, utilizing technology to help you do things that you don't have to do on a regular basis. So you don't have to drive to the bank to put an investment in. You can utilize technology to do that. We're going to talk about investments, so I'm going to skip over those, but I want to jump down to what this thing here that's called house hacking.
Real quick, Roland, real quick.
Yeah.
I want to roll back to financial plan. I know sometimes even when me discussing financial planning and also budgeting with folks, I think they don't know the correlation or the difference between the two. Because you want just pause for a second and explain the difference between budgeting and financial planning and how they do correlate with each other.
Absolutely. So budgeting is definitely a plan for your money, as far as what's coming in and what's going out. You can budgeting actually helps you organize your money in 3 different categories: needs, wants, and that savings/giving category. Now with the needs in a budget, you were talking about 50 to 60% of your pay is going to likely needs to go to needs. About 20 to 30% is going to go to wants, the things that you enjoy, the things that enjoy your lifestyle. That remaining portion, that 10 to 20%, that's where that tithing, saving, investing portion comes in of your income. If you're able to save 10 to 15 to 20% of your income, you really are able to build wealth. That's part of your financial plan. So a budget is a part of the financial plan. It's not the entire financial plan, because there's other things like insurance, there's other things like college, there's other things like your estate plan, as far as what happens in the event that you pass away, what happens in the event that your spouse passes away, where's the will, where's the documents. All of these are part of the financial plan. The budget is a cornerstone of the financial plan, but it is more of the day-to-day, month-to-month of the money coming in and out of your account. So hopefully that was helpful there. Any other questions you have with that, Mikey? Pastor Chapman?
No, sir. I just wanted you to break that down for the people who are viewing and will watch the rebroadcast, just so they can have a working knowledge of when you say financial planning, that is not limited to budgeting, but it's a part. Budgeting is a part of the financial plan. I just wanted to make sure they had a clarification on that.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So thank you for that. We're going to talk about investments here shortly and why that's totally important. But another thing is house hacking. And what I mean by house hacking is you may hear people phrase this as, I purchase a duplex. I live in one side and rent out the other. So that person's mortgage that they paid for the duplex, they're making money because that person that's living in the other side of the duplex is paying them rent, and then their portion of the mortgage is actually reduced or potentially completely paid for by the person that's next door to them. That's one way of house hacking that's generally known. Another one is even more basic and more, I think that's more inbred in our culture already. House hacking, it can be two roommates living together to save up money to purchase a home so that they can actually buy an investment themselves. It can be two families. It could be two families living together to lower that mortgage payment so that they can eventually go on their separate ways and build up that family wealth. It could be far as family members living together. It could be intergenerational, meaning mom and dad, and then the kids. The kids don't have to be kicked out of the house at 18 years old. This is a way, if they're making money, if they're contributing to the family, if they're building their careers and they're growing their families and they're doing the right things and you can coexist, this is an opportunity for older family members that may have not started saving for retirement or may have been in bad situations, but they finally have their situation together, but they're running behind, where the family is working together now and they're able to build wealth, reach goals together by doing this. This is, instead of worrying about $5 coffees, this is one way you can save a large amount of money in a short amount of time. So just think about that one. Other things, as far as being educated on down payment programs, you may have a family member that is a veteran. They qualify for certain home loan rates and things that others don't. Certain zip codes actually have down payment assistance programs right here in Tennessee based on your zip code. So you don't have to do all of this all at once, but I'm just wanting to show you some things that are out there that are right for the pickings, right available to you, that don't take a lot of time. These are some of the basics right here. So wanted to kind of give you some of those. Now I'm going to give you this one right here. This one's going to be hard for some people to swallow the hard way. Now, some people may not know what this is, but not trying to time the market. Spending less time trying to pick which stocks. Letting your politics control your investment decisions. So if you're worried about whether Trump or Biden or whomever is in office, whether that's a city official, state official, and that's going to factor into whether you're going to choose to invest in your retirement or not, or to save an emergency fund, that should not be a factor. Your financial future is important regardless of who is in office. Of course, gambling and trying to hit it quick is another bad idea. Keeping all of your money in one place, like a company stock. If that company starts to do bad, all your money goes away. Trying to borrow to invest in stocks, not a great idea either. The interest on credit cards is much higher than the returns that you would make in the stock market generally. So that's a no-no. Don't do that one. Don't get out of the market when things are air quote bad. And you're going to see what I mean by that. These are all of these that are shown in the hard way about investing. We're going to show you. I'm going to show you these here tonight. And don't just invest in one or two sectors. Don't say, hey, I've heard that there's going to be some solar stocks or some computer chips that are going to be so popular, so I'm going to put all my money here. Again, we don't want you to do that. And then you don't have to invest. You don't have to save all on your own. You don't have to make that financial plan on your own. Whether you have a spouse, whether you have a trusted financial person in your family, or it is a actual financial advisor, somebody, get some help. Get a second pair, third pair, another pair of eyes to help you that can come with a different perspective that actually is going to give you quality information that can back that information up with sources from reliable places, not just the internet or I heard. You want to know where did that information come from. You don't have to do it on your own, just Googling or just YouTubing people that have a whole bunch of views. Because it has a whole bunch of views does not mean that it's correct information. All right. Speaking of YouTube, here is a credible source here and a report that I wanted you to take a look at. Micah, we got time for this one. It's about 5-6 minutes. You think that's good? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a run. If we need to come out of it, let me know.
We good, man. We got 20
All right.
Not long ago, I met Earl Crawley.
Hey, how you doing?
But everyone here calls him Mr. Earl.
Come on down. We can talk about some finances.
He's worked as an attendant at this parking lot in Baltimore for 44 years.
So you really think it's going to improve the gas?
Funny thing, though, everyone was asking Mr. Earl about money.
Nickel and dime, nickel and dime.
That's right. Is that booth his pulpit where he's preaching the gospel of investing?
Sure is. He makes my day every time I see him.
Oh, come on now. Seriously. Investing?
How you like that gold now?
670.
Earl told me he's never made more than $12 an hour. Never earned more than $20,000 a year.
How you doing?
So how could he know something about corporate profits?
Father's gonna get
I had to pry.
So Earl, what's your net worth?
$500,000
$500,000.
Yeah.
From working here.
working here.
That's amazing.
My last statement.
And there it is in his statements, over $500,000 net worth on a parking lot wage. Now Mr. Earl had my full attention. How did he do it?
Stop working so hard and let the money work for you.
Earl's first lesson came at age 13. His mother had him working the fruit stalls to help pay the family bills. He got to keep just a few quarters for himself.
From the time my mother started taking my money that I earned in Lexington Market, that it wasn't money just to be thrown away. It was there to be used.
Economics aside, Earl had another obstacle to overcome.
Tebow is
He tells me he's dyslexic. Back in the 50s, that meant settling for a life of low-wage manual labor jobs. So Earl figured he'd better sock away what little money he was making. It was just $1 here and $1 there, starting with savings stamps, and that led to savings bonds. At 26, he got married. And by the late 60s, Earl was feeding 3 children on a meager $80 a week.
It was tough, but because we had to sacrifice a lot.
And the budget only got tighter when Earl and Beverly opted to send their kids to Catholic school instead of public school, which was free. Earl took extra jobs to pay the tuition, and you better believe he made every penny count.
Elementary school, I would ask for lunch money, and he would give me $1. Lunch was 85 cents. And he would reply before I walked out the door, "I want my change."
As the years rolled by, Earl kept saving what seemed like meaningless amounts. He started investing $25 each month into a mutual fund and did that consistently for 15 years. By the late 70s, his net worth was $25,000.
Later, as the children got older, he decided to play the stock market. And he bought 1 share, and, well, the rest is history.
He bought stock in blue chips like IBM and Coca-Cola that paid dividends, and
Instead of taking the dividends and parking it, let it set or let it reinvest itself, and it increased my shares. And the more shares I had, the more dividend I had. Eventually, the more money I have down the road.
so where did the so-called slow learner learn so much about mutual funds and blue chips and dividend reinvestment plans?
We're going to split this year.
It all comes back to that parking lot. And this is my favorite part of Earl's story. You see, his lot is smack dab in the middle of a financial district where he picked the brains of brokers and bankers and lawyers for their financial advice.
What's going on? You got any advice for me today in the markets?
No, I'm just trying to find out something from you.
All right.
Talk to everybody and listen to advice that everybody give me and take it from there.
Earl, why don't we take a look at what you've got in the portfolio now?
Earl had trouble reading, so instead, he listened. He believed in the power of compound interest and stocks for the long haul, which brings us back to the present. Today, Earl's stock portfolio alone is worth more than $500,000. And yes, his house is paid for. And no, he doesn't carry any credit card debt.
He's somebody to emulate not only as an investor, but as an individual, and how to live your life and make the best of what the Lord gave you.
Now, Earl is paying it forward.
Here comes Brenda.
He's gifting shares from his portfolio to people like Brenda Thomas, who never dreamed they could have enough money to invest.
And that was Coca-Cola.
Because you told me to reinvest my dividends, I now have 77 shares.
I'm excited about it.
I wouldn't have it if it wasn't for Mr. Earl. And he made it so easy.
If you don't have the money for
And not only is he gifting shares to a local church, he's starting an investment club there to get everyone investing.
Our goal is every member of the church will own stock, and then they're going to transfer into their family members. So starting here, it's just going to blow up.
It makes me feel good to see someone actually going on and took my advice and went on and did it. That's really a good feeling.
So from his little green shack, Earl is helping others and preaching the gospel of investments. And at the end of my day with Mr. Earl, he told me his good fortune happened not in spite of, but because of his disability.
I always used to say that I must have been the dumbest thing in school or the dumbest thing to couldn't learn, but God gave me the gift to listen and act behind it, and it's one of the best things ever happened to me.
All right. I am hoping y'all got to see that and see the power of investing, the actual benefit of saving and growing your money for the long term. Mikey, I don't know if you're there, if you had any thoughts or questions before I went any further from there, but so many different gems in that video.
Yeah, it was a lot of gems in that video. I don't have any questions or anything, but I love watching that video. It did kind of inspire me to talk to the bishop and say, hey, we might need to be some stock for all our members, because I missed that part the first time I seen that video. So Bishop, if you're watching, we need to find a stock so we can get the members into investing.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be a stock, but it's to get, but also getting people to save and invest for themselves, for their families, for their communities, whether for their church. It allows, when you're able to build wealth, you also are able to share that wealth and actually give it to the people who you really care about, the places that you really care about, and being able to actually serve in that type of manner gives hope to other people. And then it actually, as they talked about, the compound of interest growing or money growing, but the giving and how that spreads of one person decided to save and invest and give, and then it encouraged other people to start doing the same thing. That can be the positive ripple effects that we can have out in the world, not just the things that may be shared on social media that may be not so positive. These are some of the positive stories that you want to share, that you want to see more of, and that we want to see more people in our community doing. So I am certainly going to hit on a few points there. Now, some people may see that video and think, hey, that's a great story, but that video looked pretty dated and it's not the same anymore. Well, actually, I would say it's even, and I would tell them, you're right, it's not the same anymore. I would say it's a lot easier to do some of the things that were discussed in that video, like saving and investing and actually growing that money, because there is more technology out in the world. There are cell phones, there are online investment accounts that you can open up very easily. You can transfer money into an account very easily. You can meet with someone virtually to talk about investing. You can talk with them. Yes, you can still talk with people in person. You have digital statements now. You don't have to wait in the mail. You can actually go online and actually look at those statements, print them out. So there's all of these different things that actually enhance your ability to do these things. So don't be someone that every time you see something or a video or any type of information that is, and you're telling yourself, but that person did it, but I can't. We need to start talking about how. So I want to kind of go with some of the how and some of those details, maybe that you had some questions on from that video. So I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to get into some investing. It's one of the things that people really, really are curious about. We're going to start at a base level and just show you some things there, and really kind of build out from there. The thing that people really miss out on. Let's see. Let me get this screen shared. present and share. Great. I want to make sure y'all can see what I'm seeing. Okay. And some of the benefits of investing and saving. One is when you're able to grow and build these investments, you're able to do more of the things that you really care about, whether that's a charity, whether that's giving to the church, tithing. This is one of those things you can actually have the ability to do. And it also potentially could help with your taxes. It could that's not the reason for you to do it. It's going to be for that church, that charitable, that cause, that mission that you're supporting. But there are additional benefits. By investing your money and growing your money, it helps fight inflation, because we know that the cost of food is going to continue to go up. The cost of gas, which is an example I'm going to show here in a minute, continues to go up and rise. As we see these costs continue to go up, investing helps outpace inflation and does outpace inflation, which means your money is actually growing. When you're not saving and investing, you're actually losing value of that dollar, because a dollar when you went to the candy lady or to the store could get you a bag of chips, a drink, and a pickle. It can't get you that anymore. But if you're investing, you're able to build those dollars and grow that money faster than the prices that are going up over time. We've already talked about building that wealth and the lifestyle that you want to have, and also leaving a legacy. Who am I leaving this to? I don't want my children to start over from square one where I did. I don't want your children to start over from the place that you did, or even worse position. So being able to have certain things and build wealth and have knowledge and skill sets and mindsets are the legacy that you're leaving behind, so your children can go even further than you did. So let's see some of this power of investing. We talked earlier about a financial plan, and one of the things that all financial plans need to have is some goals. We all have things in our lives that happen and that are unexpected. We just have unplanned expenses that are going to come out of our pockets, whether we like it or not, whether that's a doctor bill, whether that is a car repair, whether that is something that needs to be repaired at the house. Maybe it's a job loss. You're going to need some money set aside. This is a short-term savings goal. This is what we would call some type of emergency reserve, savings accounts. You need to have that savings account and money built up, and that's not for investing. That money needs to be set aside. Before we can get to investing, if you have no money at all, you have to start building a discipline of having some money to set aside, because what that video that we just looked at talked about was having that long-term mindset, building and growing that money over time and not touching it and allowing it to continue to contribute to it and build and reinvest and grow over time. But if every time something bad happens, or when something unexpected happens, or every time something tempting happens, you're quick to grab from that, you'll never see the fruits that you actually deserve. You'll really not get to enjoy some of the things that you could have if you were actually in a better position. So you have to be able to have that emergency fund, something set aside. Now, the rule of thumb is 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. You may not be there yet, but you need to have something. Even if you have zero right now, let's try to get to 500. Once you get to $500, let's try to get to $1,000. Let's try to build that emergency savings up, so if something goes wrong, you're not completely out of your comfort zone, out of financial rhythm, to where now you're pulling from these long-term goals that you see here on the screen. Mid-term goals, things like it may be a vacation, it may be to buy a house, it may be to put your kids in college, it may be for you to go back to college. Longer-term goals, it may be retirement. It may be, again, another home. It could be starting a business. It could be several different things, but these are goals that are 15 plus years out, 10 years, I would say more, 10 years plus out are long-term goals. Now you see some things with charts and equities and bonds on there. Don't worry about that. We're going to get into some of those here in a moment, but really the the short of it is, it's really showing you that, hey, if we're going to invest and grow our money, we need to give it time if we're really wanting those goals to actually happen and we want that money to work for us. So I'm going to give you an example. We're not going to take too long on it, but I'm going to just show you just how $10,000 can be invested and can grow. And we're going to show you on several different ways, but this one is pretty straightforward. It's just laid out for you. So let's just have an example of $10,000 invested. Someone has $10,000 invested and they want to put this money somewhere where they can grow and build their money. 20 years later, where would the money be? They could have 20 years later, $19,897.89 if they were earning a rate on their money of 3.5%. You can get 3.5% without risking too much of your money. You are playing it safely. You may be able to get that from what we would call a high yield savings account. These high yield savings accounts right now are available at your credit union, your bank. There's no risk to the money as far as you losing it. The bank guarantees it. So for us, the FDIC up to $250,000. So you're not at a risk of losing this money. If the interest rates are still provided, they stay at that interest rate, you keep that money in that account for 20 years. That's all it grows to, about $20,000, $10,000 to 20. If I want to invest for the long term, I want a little bit more from my money. Even though I only invested $10,000 that one time, I still want that money to build and grow a lot more. As you can see, the other two options here, where if I choose to put that money somewhere else, other than a high yield savings account or a checking account or some type of savings vehicle or something, or some type of very safe investment vehicle, I can earn more money if I choose to invest. This 6% return rate is a mixture. On the previous screen, we had stocks and bonds. A mixture of stocks and bonds could potentially earn you a rate of 6% over that 20 years. That average rate of return, that means some years it's higher, some years it's lower. But with the average 6% rate of return, your $10,000 turned into $32,000. You didn't put another dime in it over the 20 years. You just put it over there. Imagine that being for your child's education. So that $10,000 that you set aside, they were just born, and now 20 years later, they have $19,000 or $32,000 or $67,000. Which one do you want for your family member, for your child, for your future? Do you have the ability to do so? Do you have the emergency savings to not touch the money? Do you have the other income to pay your bills without touching this to allow the money to grow? Do you have the ability to put more money in this account to allow it to grow even further? So if you were able to put $100 a month into this, in addition to the $10,000, this actually could grow into 20 years, $139,673.67, just by putting in that one-time deposit of $10,000 and then deciding after every paycheck to do $50 per paycheck. You're talking about at least $139,673.67 if your money is earning this 10% rate of return. So somebody's like, hey, I want to do that. How can I do that? Well, you have to invest. You have to be able to invest and grow that money. And we're going to talk about one way to do that is investing in the stock market. And these are just some example of some stocks here. Now, this is an old screenshot. So it's showing Apple, is showing Boeing. You may have heard of, this is the airline maker. Berkshire Hathaway is the company Warren Buffett, one of the richest men in the world, owns. Disney. Walt Disney, people don't realize Walt Disney company owns ABC, it owns ESPN, it owns Marvel, it owns Star Wars. You name it, the Disney company owns so many different things. General Electric, Home Depot, Nike. Some of these companies are some of the biggest companies in the world. But some people still don't know necessarily what an actual stock is. You're going to hear people use this term called equities when they're talking about stocks, because that means they have a piece of ownership. You think about, some people think when they hear the word equity, they think about a house. They think, hey, I have equity in my house. You have ownership in your house is what you're thinking, right? Well, the same thing with stocks. When you own stocks, you're owning a portion of the company. You have ownership in a portion of the company. And as that company rises and falls, your value or your investment in that company or that stock rises and falls as well. In this example, you can see these shares of Coca-Cola. This is all the way back in 1929. So these shares have grew over the years, but this is just one example of where these shares used to be traded as pieces of paper. Nowadays, this is no longer done. This is digital. It's on a computer screen, and they're not actually trading physical shares of paper. So people tend to think that it's not real. It's still happening. You still have that ownership. It's just not on a tangible piece of paper. But I still want you to realize that owning stocks is owning a piece of property. You're owning a part of a company. Now, a bond, what are bonds? Bonds are those IOUs. That's where you're loaning a company money. A company is asking the public, or the government is asking the public or some investors for money, but they're going to pay them back. But not only do the investor, the person that they're asking money from, they'll just pay them back. They're going to have to give them some interest on top of that, because time is money. And if I give you some of my money, I could have been using that to grow my money. So I'm going to need something else in return for you, rather than you just paying me back. I'm going to need you to pay me back plus interest. So this is a way for people to grow their money. If it's a company and they're going on a big investment, or a government agency is going to make a big investment in the community, they will issue bonds, and they will issue these bonds to investors that actually they can make that investment to do whatever project they're wanting to do. And the investors benefit by giving them that money, and they get to earn a certain interest rate from it. So let's look at, when we just talked about stocks, we just talked about bonds, and then we hear this word stock market. Market is the key thing I want you to think about when you hear stock market. You have supermarket, you have flea markets. What are we talking about when we're talking about market? We're talking about a place where people are selling goods and services, buying and selling. And it's one of those things where, because you see these green arrows and red arrows and all different types of charts going around, but really it's really at the end of the day, it's really people buying and selling stocks, making actual assumptions about where a certain item is going to actually, whether it's going to be doing well in the future, or is it going to be doing less poorly, and whether they want to actually make that purchase or actually sell that investment. That's all that's going on there. And there's all different types of markets that go on in the world. That includes stocks, bonds, gold, oil, cryptocurrencies, and all types of other things. When people use the term stock market, they're including all of those things. Now, the actual stock market is more specific, but generally when you hear someone say the stock market, they're talking about all of these things. So if you go to cnbc.com and you look at the actual home page, they'll have all of these different things that are listed on the top of the page. And you'll see where it's underlined with US. That's the US stock market that they're referring to. And it's telling you how's it doing, the different markets in the United States. And they're showing you green, obviously, it's doing positive for that day or at that moment. And red is usually meaning it's actually going down in value at that moment. But you see all other different types of markets here as well. Not only do you see for the US stock market, but you also see for bonds, Europe, Asia, oil, gold, Forex, which is the foreign exchange market. You have I said foreign exchange, the Forex market, cryptocurrencies, and then you have the pre-market before the market actually opens. So with all of these markets and things that go on, it can be very confusing to folks. So I always like to bring it back. Let's bring it back. We talked about the stock. How can this help me? How is this actually working in my favor? Well, I use this example here for people this really helps some folks. So you see on the left here, in 1994, gas prices were $1.11 on average back in 1994. 2024, depending across the United States, thank goodness right now here in Tennessee, it is not $3.38. Roughly, maybe in some places it is. I take that back. It is right around this, but about $3.38 per gallon. But over time, as we talked about earlier with inflation, because that's what this is, the same thing actually, this same gallon of gas is going up in price. These goods go up in price over time. Here's another example. In 1994, the S&P 500, which is a group of stocks, 500 of the largest stocks in the U.S. on the stock market, as far as the when we're talking about 500 of the largest companies that are publicly traded. That S&P stands for Standard & Poor's, if you're wondering, was about it. Now, the point system that it has, it was about 460 basically points back then, 1994. Right now, it's over 5,000. So the difference between that is, look at that versus the gas. Gas has went up, let's say 2 to 3 times that amount over that same amount of time. As we look at the stock market has went up 10 to 12 times that amount over the time period. So if you're only spending your money buying things that you're going to just use, expense, and buy more of, and then it goes away, you're buying liabilities, you're buying expenses, you're buying items that do not grow in value. Whereas when you invest, you actually have the ability to grow your money. These are called, this is how you build wealth. This is how you build assets, because your money grows exponentially over time. That's what this is showing you, that, hey, this is compounding interest. Your money is making money on top of itself. I know we don't have that much time, so I'm going to, this chart is one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. I talked just a minute ago about the S&P 500, and I also talked about the growth of $10,000 earlier, of how it grows over time. And I just talked about that, just $10,000. It doesn't have to be $10,000. If you, that $10,000 number is a big number for you, let's shrink that number down to $1,000, $100. But this is a one-time investment. This example is showing you, hey, if this person or this family invested $10,000 way back when in 1940s, what has the stock market did over time? People have this assumption that the stock market goes all the way down to zero and people lose money if they choose to invest it. That is not true. That is not true. There are individual stocks that actually can go to zero, individual stocks. But when you invest in the overall market, when you invest in the overall market and you own a portion of the market goes up over time, because all different types of things happen, as you can see on this chart, whether it's an attack on Pearl Harbor back in the 1940s, or it's the oil crisis in the 70s, or it's the 9/11 attacks, or it's coronavirus, whatever the case may be, that the market itself is resilient. and companies will come and go, but that market continues to grow because there has to be that economic activity that's happening. There has to be that innovation that's going on and that growth. And when you're investing in that, you don't have to pick individual stocks. You can actually own something like, for example, the S&P 500, and you can see even after these down ticks, these are opportunities where if you're investing for the long term, that money is going to grow tremendously. If you want to look just from the recession, 2008, the Great Recession in 2008 to now, you can see that this indicator here is right about $1 million. If you go straight across, it's right around $1 million or so. This, by the time it reached 2022, that $1 million had turned into $3 million. And remember, it started at 10. It started at $10,000. So it's a huge, huge difference. So what are these things where I can own the market, where I can invest in the stock market? How do I do that? Well, these are mutual funds. Mutual funds are a way where a group of people are investing in these stocks, where they collectively are putting money into that mutual fund, and that actual portfolio manager, the person that actually runs that fund, is actually buying the stocks and the bonds and the actual cash investments which are called short-term debt. These things they're buying, they're actually the ones that actually manage it. You don't have to. You actually purchase the mutual fund. They actually make the investments. You make the steady investment into the account, and they charge you a small percentage fee. And as you buy those shares or the ownership into that fund, as it goes up in value, you make money from that. As that mutual fund makes dividends, you make dividends. They give you a share. So that's a mutual fund. Where do you get these mutual funds from? You can get them from several places, but people have heard of some of the biggest players are Vanguard, Charles Schwab, Fidelity Investments. These are big brands that will help you with setting up an investment account so you can purchase mutual funds or stocks or bonds. They have all of these things available to you where you can actually make these investments. You don't have to go to New York. You don't have to actually mail a payment in. That's not necessarily how this works. You can actually set this stuff up online pretty easily. Another version of the mutual fund is an ETF. It's called an electronically traded fund that you can set up, very similar to a mutual fund. And these actually work very similar, but you can actually narrow down certain areas of the stock market if you want to with electronic traded funds. You can actually buy these throughout the day. With mutual funds, you usually buy them before the market opens and at the end of the market day. Well, these electronic trading funds you can buy throughout the day. So, Mikey, I don't know how we're looking up. Pastor Chapman. I don't know as far as how much time we have, but I have some time for Q&A.